Hi all, I am going to talk to you a little bit about anxiety today. I'm going to briefly talk about what it is and where it comes from, and then that's going to give us some insight into what we can do about it. So just very quick tips. You might have experienced anxiety before, or you might be experiencing it now and it's very new to you, or you might know someone who has anxiety and maybe you can share this wisdom with them. So first of all, I'll talk about what it is and where it comes from. Basically, anxiety comes from our innate response of fight, flight, or freeze, and I'm sure that you've all heard that before. But I'll give you an example of what that is and why we have that. So, for example, pretend you're walking through the woods and it's a beautiful day. The sun is shining down. Your skin is feeling warm from the sun. There's a nice breeze through your hair. You can hear the trees and the leaves rustling in the wind. You're really enjoying a leisurely walk. And then all of a sudden, a bear jumps out from behind a tree. There is definitely a threat, right? So our body is going to go into fight, flight, or freeze because we have a perceived threat. So what happens in our body is all of our essential organs and functions in our body non-essential functions are going to shut down in our body. So in that moment, you don't need your reproductive system. In that moment, you don't need your digestive system, things like that. And then your body's going to focus on the systems that you do need. It's also going to increase a dose of adrenaline and cortisol. And all of the stuff that's happening in your body is going to give you the ability to either fight that bear or run away from that bear. Now, some things that you're going to start feeling in your body, you might get a stomach ache because of your digestive system shutting down. You might have really tense muscles. You might shake. You might feel really nervous. You might start to get hot. You might perspire. Then our body essentially is preparing, like I said, to fight the bear or run away from the bear. Now, the problem happens and anxiety becomes a bad thing and not a good thing when the perceived threat is not something that's physical to us. Because if it's not physical, we can't expel that energy and we can't use those extra hormones that our body is creating to help us. So I'm going to talk about 3 really quick ways that we can help with that response. So the first one is physical exercise, right? Our body is preparing for physical exercise in that moment. It's preparing to fight. It's preparing to run. So physical exercise is going to use up what your body is giving you in that moment. Now, a lot of people in the moment of anxiety don't really feel like exercising. Fair enough. If you can, then do it. It's great for you. If you feel too paralyzed to do that, or you don't have the option to do that in the moment, then there are a couple other things that you can do. So one of them is breathing exercises. Now, often when I talk about breathing exercises, I get the eye roll. But breathing exercises are good and actually have a physiological response in your body. So as we're in fight, flight, or freeze mode, we only breathe out of the top portion of our lungs. So there's all this air in the majority of our lungs and the bottom of our lungs that doesn't have oxygen in it anymore because we've used it. So the new air that we're taking in, because we're only letting out a little bit and taking a little bit in, is giving us limited oxygen. And that's something that your body is going to be expecting when we're in that state. So if we can expel all of that extra air and then take in fresh air and give our body a nice big dose of fresh oxygen, that's going to trigger in our brain that this threat must be over because now I have oxygen, and it's going to start calming your system. So it is an actual physical response that happens through a breathing exercise. So I'll talk about 2 different exercises. The first exercise that I'm going to talk about is just expelling that energy or expelling that extra air from your lungs. So we're going to breathe out hard and fast as much as we can, and then take in a nice deep breath. Breathing out through the mouth, in through the nose, if you can, if you're not stuffed up. So this is what it looks like. And my alarm goes off. Let's try that again. All right. So we want to do that 2 or 3 times. Give yourself some good oxygen, and that should start to relax things. The other breathing exercise that I want to talk to you about is shape breathing, and I've heard of star breathing, square breathing, triangle breathing, rectangle breathing, all different kinds of breathing that you can do. Personally, I choose a rectangle, and I've drawn one up here, and I apologize if it's backwards for you. It might be, but basically it's just a rectangle, and you don't need to write the numbers in the in and out. That's just for reference for you, so you can watch as I'm doing it. But basically what we're doing is we want to breathe out more than we're breathing in. And so the sides that are shorter is where we're breathing in, and then the top and the bottom is where we're breathing out. So we're just going to trace our finger around the rectangle and breathe accordingly. So this is what it's going to look like. So as you're breathing, you're counting 2 counts in, 4 counts out, and you're just going to go around that rectangle a couple of times. If you can do it without the rectangle, that's great. You can just count in your head, 2 counts in, 4 counts out, and that's very helpful. Now, sometimes we will find ourselves in a situation where we can't do that, or we might feel funny doing that because there's people around. Then another thing that we can do is engage other senses. Now, I'm sure you've heard the term mindfulness a lot lately. Being mindful basically means focusing on something intensely, something that's happening in the moment, right? So if we start to be mindful about one of our senses, then that's going to distract our brain, and then we're not going to be thinking about that threat anymore, and that will calm and relax our system. So the first thing that I tend to do is, if I can, I'll escape to the washroom and just run some really warm water over my hands, rub my hands together under it, feel that warmth. It's very soothing, and again, it distracts your brain. Now, if you can't do that, you can't escape to a washroom, there isn't one nearby, you can't leave where you are, I would suggest carrying either gum or candy that is really hot or really sour. So hot, I mean peppermint, spearmint, cinnamon, something like that, or something really sour. And by chewing on a piece of gum with an intense flavor, or sucking on a candy or mint with an intense flavor, and really being mindful about the way that it tastes, because it's strong, it's going to be a lot easier to be mindful and to pay attention. That's also going to distract our brain from the perceived threat. And so don't only focus on the flavor, but focus on the way it feels in your mouth. Focus on all that. And that should help soothe anxiety as well. So anyways, there you have it. A little bit about anxiety. I hope this is helpful for you, or I hope you're able to share this with someone who you think it may be helpful for. Have a great day. Be safe and well.